I waited 7 years, smiling while she lied every day. She thought I was blind, but I was collecting everything. And when I finally moved, it was already over. The rain had a strange way of making silence louder. It hit the glass windows of the old apartment in slow, uneven rhythms, as if the sky itself was unsure whether to cry or stay still. Inside, the room smelled faintly of cold coffee and forgotten nights. A single desk lamp burned in the corner, casting a pale yellow circle over scattered papers, photographs, and a black leather notebook that had been opened and closed so many times the spine had nearly given up. I sat there watching it all, not moving, not blinking much, just breathing in the weight of everything I had once called my life. For 7 years I waited. People think waiting is passive, that it means doing nothing. But they don't understand the kind of waiting that reshapes a person from the inside out. The kind that turns pain into structure, memory into strategy, silence into weapon. Her name was Maya. Even now, saying it inside my head felt like touching something sharp. She had walked into my life like a promise. Soft voice, careful smile, eyes that made you believe in futures that didn't exist yet. I still remember the first apartment we shared. Small kitchen, broken heater, laughter echoing off thin walls. We were poor, yes, but we were real. Or at least I thought we were. The first crack didn't look like betrayal. It looked like distance. Late-night phone call she stepped out to take. Smile she stopped sharing. A new perfume, she said, was just a gift from a colleague. I ignored it, because love makes detectives blind. But truth never stays hidden forever. It leaks through the smallest cracks. And when I finally saw it, the messages, the lies, the carefully built second life, it didn't break me immediately. It reorganized me. That was the dangerous part. Pain usually makes people explode. Mine made me quiet. I started observing instead of reacting, listening instead of confronting, smiling when I should have shattered, and she never noticed. That's what made it easier. Months passed like that, then years. We still lived in the same space, but it wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage, and I had learned my role perfectly. The loving husband, the forgiving man, the one who moved on. But inside, I was building something else. Every lie she told became a brick. Every betrayal became a wire. Every late-night return, every fake excuse, every time she looked me in the eye without guilt. I remembered, and I waited, until the day everything would finally fall into place. It started on a Thursday. She came home later than usual, heels clicking against the wooden floor, her phone already lighting up with another message. She quickly turned away. She didn't see me sitting in the dark living room. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care anymore. "Still awake?" she asked casually, dropping her purse on the chair. I smiled, a calm, patient smile. "Couldn't sleep," I said softly. And in that moment, something shifted, not in her but in me. Because I realized the waiting was almost over. And what comes after waiting is never forgiveness. It is execution. The house had a different sound at night when you truly stopped pretending. Not the usual comfort of a home settling into sleep, but the hollow echo of a place where two lives existed in parallel without ever touching anymore. Maya moved through the hallway like she always did, careful, quiet, rehearsed. She didn't know that I had started noticing even the smallest patterns, the way she checked her phone twice before stepping inside, the way she kept her coat slightly away from mine in the closet, as if closeness itself had become dangerous. That night, she went straight to the bathroom. The sound of running water filled the apartment. Steam started creeping under the door like a secret trying to escape. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone on the nightstand. Unlocked. That was her first mistake. Or maybe her last. People think revenge begins with anger. It doesn't. It begins with clarity. I picked up the phone slowly. No shaking hands. No racing heartbeat. That part of me had died a long time ago. What remained was precision. Messages. Photos. Deleted chats recovered through apps she thought were safe. Names I had seen before, now confirmed. A second life she had built so carefully it almost looked like art. Almost. But art still burns. And so does trust. I didn't react. Not even a breath changed. Instead, I placed the phone back exactly where it was. Same angle. Same position. Like nothing had happened. Because the worst thing you can do when someone is lying is let them think they're winning. When she came out of the bathroom, She was drying her hair with a towel, humming softly. That sound, so casual, so ordinary, felt like a different world from the one I was living in. "Long day?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, avoiding my eyes. Work was exhausting. I nodded like I believed her. "I made tea," I added gently. For a split second, she paused. Something flickered in her expression, guilt maybe, or discomfort, but it disappeared too quickly to name. "Thanks," she said. We sat together in silence. 2 cups of tea. 2 people pretending they were still inside the same story. But I had already started writing a different ending. The next phase began quietly. I started changing small things. Not enough to be noticed immediately, but enough to slowly shift the ground beneath her feet. A document left slightly misplaced. A message notification she didn't expect to see. A casual question asked at the wrong time, repeated just enough to make her uneasy. And the more she lied, the more careless she became. That was the beauty of guilt. It always accelerates its own downfall. She started snapping at me more often. "You're acting weird lately," she said one evening, dropping her keys harder than usual on the table. "Is everything okay with you?" I looked at her calmly. "Yes," I said. Why wouldn't it be? That answer confused her more than anger ever could. Because I wasn't fighting. I wasn't accusing. I wasn't breaking. I was simply present. And presence, when used correctly, is terrifying. One night, I heard her on the balcony. Low voice. Careful tone. A name I didn't need to hear again to recognize. The cold wind carried fragments of her conversation into the room. Words like soon, wait, and he doesn't suspect anything. I stood in the dark doorway, watching her shadow against the glass. And for the first time in years, I smiled for real. Not the polite one, not the controlled one, but the smile of someone who had finally confirmed the final piece of the puzzle. She had no idea, not even close, because while she thought she was hiding her double life, I had already started preparing her ending. And endings, once prepared properly, don't need permission to begin. The night after I heard her on the balcony, something inside the house changed permanently. It wasn't visible. Not at first. No shattered objects. No raised voices. No dramatic confrontation. But the air felt different. Like a room that had just learned a secret it could never forget. Maya was still playing her role perfectly in the morning. She made breakfast, moved around the kitchen, asked me simple questions about my day. Her voice was light, controlled, like someone carefully walking over thin ice, hoping it wouldn't crack. I watched her hands as she poured coffee. They didn't shake. That told me everything I needed to know. People only stay steady when they believe they are still in control. But control is an illusion built on ignorance. And I had already removed hers. That afternoon, I left the house earlier than usual. The city outside was loud in the way it always is. Cars honking, vendors shouting, people rushing past each other like they were all trying to escape something they couldn't name. The sky was gray, heavy, as if it was carrying unfinished conversations. I went to a place she never thought I would go. A small office building near the edge of the commercial district. Old elevator. Flickering lights. The kind of place where secrets are stored because no one thinks to look there. Inside, I met Arif. He was waiting for me. Arif was not a friend. Not exactly. Not anymore. He leaned back in his chair as I placed a folder on his desk. Thick. Heavy. Full of everything I had collected over years. Screenshots. Transaction records. Timestamps. Conversations. Patterns. Proof. Absolute proof. He opened it slowly, scanning through pages with growing silence. "This is complete," he finally said. I nodded. "It has to be." He looked up at me then, studying my face. "You know what this will do?" I didn't answer immediately, because I did know, not just to her life, but to everything built around it. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's the point." When I returned home that evening, she was already there. But something was wrong. Not obvious at first, just subtle. Her shoes were off near the door, but not neatly placed. Her phone was in her hand, even though she wasn't using it. Her eyes kept shifting toward me, then away. Anxiety had started to replace confidence. "You came late," she said. "Work," I replied simply. She nodded, but didn't believe me. Silence stretched between us again, but this time it was heavier, denser, like it had weight. Finally, she broke. We need to talk. I looked at her calmly. About what? Her jaw tightened. You've been different. I almost laughed. Different. If only she knew how long different had been waiting to become real. Instead, I sat down across from her. People change, I said. That's not what I mean, she snapped. Then softened her voice quickly, realizing she was losing control. I feel like something is going on. I leaned back slightly. For a moment, I said nothing. Then, do you want honesty? Her eyes locked onto mine. A pause. Yes, she said. That word. So simple. So dangerous. Because truth, once invited, never arrives gently. I stood up slowly and walked to the drawer near the table. She watched every movement now. Careful. Alert. I pulled out a single envelope and placed it on the table between us. Not opened. Not explained. Just placed. Her hand hesitated before touching it. When she finally opened it, the color drained from her face in real time. Page after page. Names. Screenshots. Dates. Everything she thought was hidden. Now organized. Structured, undeniable. Her breath broke. This is real. I finished for her softly. Her eyes shot up to me. Panic. Shock. And something else beneath it. Fear. Because she finally understood something she had refused to believe for years. I was not guessing. I was not confused. I was not emotional. I had known. For a very long time. You were watching me, she whispered. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. I was waiting for you to finish. That was the moment the room truly changed. Her voice dropped. You're not going to ruin everything over this. I looked at her for a long time. Then I smiled again. But this time, there was no warmth in it. No, I said quietly. I'm going to end what you started. The silence after the envelope opened was not empty. It was full of everything she had ignored, denied, and buried under excuses for years. Maya stood there frozen, the papers trembling slightly in her hands. Her breathing had become uneven, like her body had forgotten how to stay calm. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows harder now, as if the world itself had leaned closer to listen. And I just watched. No anger, no shouting, no sudden explosion, only stillness. That was what scared her most, because she had expected fire. Instead, she found ice. You planned this, she finally whispered. Her voice cracked in the middle, like something inside her had given up trying to stay strong. I didn't answer immediately. I walked to the window and looked outside at the city lights flickering in the distance. Life continued out there, people laughing, arguing, living in ignorance of endings being written in silence. Yes, I said at last, but not the way you think. She stepped closer, desperate now. What does that even mean? I turned slowly to face her. It means I didn't destroy you in a moment of anger, I said. I built the moment where destruction became unavoidable. Her eyes widened slightly. You're insane. A pause. I nodded calmly. Maybe. And for the first time, her confidence cracked completely. She dropped the papers onto the table like they burned her hands. Listen, she said quickly, her voice shifting now, no longer defensive but strategic. We can fix this. Whatever you think you know, we can talk about it. You don't have to. Fix it. I repeated softly. That word felt almost funny, like trying to repair ashes. She reached out toward me instinctively, as if physical contact could reverse reality. But I stepped back. Not violently. Just enough. Enough to show distance was permanent now. You think betrayal is something you negotiate? I asked quietly. Her lips parted, but no words came. Because deep down, she already knew the answer. That night didn't end in shouting. It ended in something worse. Planning. She started talking again, but differently now. Carefully. Softly. Calculating every sentence like she was trying to rewrite the outcome in real time. You're thinking emotionally, she said. You're hurting, I get that. But this will ruin both of us. I laughed under my breath. That's the first honest thing you've said tonight. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You don't actually want this to go public. I looked at her, and for a moment, I let her believe she had found leverage. Then I said, it already has. Silence. That single sentence changed everything. Her face went still. What did you do? I walked toward the table and picked up my phone. One tap. A message had already been sent. Not to her. Not to us. But outward. Beyond this room. Beyond control. The beginning of exposure. Her knees slightly weakened. No, she whispered. Yes, I said calmly. You don't get to keep living a double life and expect it to stay private forever. Her voice broke completely now. You're destroying everything we built. I looked at her for a long time, and when I spoke, my voice was quieter than before. No, I said. You destroyed it the moment you decided I was blind enough not to notice. The following hours were strange, not dramatic like movies. No immediate chaos, just slow-motion collapse. Phones lighting up, messages coming in, calls she couldn't answer fast enough, names she thought she could control now turning into consequences. And me. I sat in the same chair, watching, not chasing revenge anymore, just observing its arrival. At one point, she grabbed her coat, rushing toward the door. Where are you going? I asked. Anywhere away from this, she snapped. I nodded slightly. That won't help. She stopped for a second, looking back at me, really looking this time. For the first time, she didn't see the man she thought she knew. She saw the one she had created. Quiet, patient, unmoving, and already finished with her story. As she left, the door closed softly. No slam, just an ending. I remained alone in the apartment, the silence returning, but now it felt different again. Not heavy, not painful, clean. On the table, the envelope still lay open. The rain outside had finally stopped, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting anymore. Because what comes after waiting is finally beginning. The morning after she left, the apartment didn't feel empty. It felt cleared, like something toxic had finally been removed, and the air was still adjusting to honesty. The rain had washed the streets overnight, leaving the world outside damp and shining under a pale, tired sun. Light slipped through the curtains in soft lines, touching the table where everything had begun to collapse the night before. The envelope was still there, open, forgotten. Or maybe not forgotten, just no longer powerful enough to matter. I stood by the window for a long time, watching people move below like nothing had changed. That was the strange part about destruction. To the world, it rarely looks like anything at all. Inside the apartment, everything was silent, but in my mind it was finally quiet. Not the silence of waiting, the silence of completion. The first call came just after noon. Unknown number. I answered without hesitation. A man's voice on the other end, careful, controlled, trying to sound neutral but failing to hide urgency. You're the one who released the file? I didn't answer immediately. Then, yes. A pause. You understand what this is going to trigger. I looked out the window again. I've understood for a long time. The call ended shortly after that. No threats. No negotiation. Just acknowledgement. Because truth, once released properly, doesn't need permission to spread. By evening, everything had started moving exactly as expected. Messages turned into calls. Calls turned into silence. Silence turned into damage control that no one could control. Her world, carefully built on layers of secrecy, was now reacting like a machine thrown into reverse while still running forward. And I could see it clearly now. Every consequence I had prepared was arriving on time. Not fast. Not slow. Perfectly. She returned 2 days later. I heard her before I saw her. The key turning in the lock with hesitation. The door opening slowly, as if she wasn't sure what she would find inside anymore. When she stepped in, she looked different. Not just tired, reduced. Her hair was slightly messy, her eyes shadowed like she hadn't slept properly in days. The confidence she used to carry had collapsed into something fragile and uncertain. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said softly, "You didn't stop it." I shook my head. "No." Her voice rose slightly. "You could have." I looked at her calmly. That was never the point. That hit her harder than any anger ever could, because anger still means connection. And I had already disconnected. She walked deeper into the room, slower now. "What do you want from this?" she asked, voice breaking slightly. "You've ruined everything. Are you happy now?" I studied her for a long moment, not with hatred, not even satisfaction, just understanding. And when I finally spoke, my voice was steady. "I didn't ruin it," I said. I revealed it. She let out a shaky breath, stepping back like the words physically pushed her. You think you're justified, she whispered. I don't need justification anymore, I replied. I needed truth. And I got it. Silence filled the space again. This time, she didn't argue, because she had no version of reality left that still protected her. She sat down slowly on the edge of the sofa, as if her legs had stopped trusting her completely. I didn't think you'd go this far, she said quietly. I nodded slightly. That's the mistake people always make, I said. They think silence means weakness. Her eyes lifted toward me. What happens now? I walked toward the table and picked up the envelope one last time. It felt lighter now. Empty in a way. Because its purpose was complete. Now, I said softly. Now you live with what you built. Her lips trembled. And you? She asked. I looked at her for a final time. Really looked. At the woman I once believed in. At the version of her that had existed only in my memory. Then I said, I already did. I left the apartment that evening. No dramatic exit. No final confrontation. Just a door closing behind me. The city outside felt larger than before, like I had stepped out of a life that no longer contained me. People passed by without noticing anything unusual. The world did not pause for endings. It never does. As I walked forward, I realized something simple. I hadn't destroyed everything. I had only destroyed the illusion, and illusions always fall on their own. I just stopped holding them up. The waiting was over. The silence was gone. And what remained was freedom.